10 years ago, Ashoka University introduced India to the concept of a liberal arts education. The private research university, tucked away in Sonipat, Haryana, came along at a time when the cracks in India's higher education system were just starting to become pretty glaring.
So, in comes this fancy private university that positioned itself as everything the conventional Indian college was not. Ashoka promised to offer holistic, liberal, multidisciplinary, and interdisciplinary education. Simply put, it was offering students a choice. And that simple yet powerful promise is what made it stand out.
At a public university, like for example, let's take St. Stephen's or like in Delhi or like St. Xavier's in Mumbai, if I wanted to study a BSc in economics, I will have to choose that from the get-go.
Correct.
And there is no way of changing that once I'm there. Or like there may be chances, but it'll be slim. As opposed to Ashoka, you don't choose before coming in. So that was the major selling point, not just for students, but even for faculty. Like they get to design courses as per their tastes and their requirements, as well as the evaluation methods.
That was Nathan Narde. He covers education and electric mobility here at the Ken. Nathan also happens to be an alumnus of Ashoka. He says that Ashoka's big promise when it was launched was education for life. The liberal arts approach was not only really ambitious at the time, it was also completely foreign to most Indians.
Their entire premise was that we'll set up a Western liberal arts style university. It just happens to be in Hindi heartland, Haryana. That's it. It is. It's like, it was like a liberal oasis in like Haryana, you know? So what sets Ashoka apart is, or basically let's just go back to brass tacks, right? What is liberal arts? Liberal arts is not a subject. It is a pedagogy. In layman's terms, it's an approach to studying where you're exposed to all disciplines first and then you choose what you want to major in. Now, how do you do this? At Ashoka, there is this concept known as foundation courses. Now, when I was at Ashoka, there were 9 foundation courses. This kept changing over time, like you need 8 or 9 or something. But let's just go with the assumption there are 9 courses, 2 of which will be critical thinking.
If you ask the management or faculty at Ashoka, they will tell you that the ultimate purpose of all of this is to promote intellectual curiosity. And it isn't just anybody teaching you these courses. Ashoka hires the creme de la creme, the most illustrious historians, authors, scientists, artists, and entrepreneurs to teach students.
And because of all of that, Ashoka is widely seen as some sort of academic utopia. Even now, 10 years later, choice and intellectual curiosity are still at the very core of the Ashoka model. But the founders and investors behind the university say that this is only the beginning. The university is constantly evolving. And with that evolution comes new pressures.
The latest phase of the Ashoka story is not something that a lot of people may have seen coming. It is marked by a stronger focus on business and sciences than ever before. Case in point, the university's thriving entrepreneurship department. In the last few years, it has become one of the most popular courses on offer.
So let's just step back to like 2019. There was a batchmate of mine that I've quoted in this story. Her name is Anjana Ramesh. She was an entrepreneurship. She studied entrepreneurship as a minor at Ashoka. She attended the expo in 2019 and she pointed it out to me that, you know, when I was attending this, like the room was only half empty, as most entrepreneurs would see it. And this was a tiny 20-seater room. Now, cut to 2024, the research, the Ekanto Ghosh from like the entrepreneurship department, he's the deputy head of the department. He pointed it out to me that now these same expos are held in 400, like a 400-seater auditorium. Now that's the sheer scale of growth that the entrepreneurship department has seen.
In fact, now the university is also thinking about upgrading the entrepreneurship course from a minor to a major. A big reason for its popularity is because students think signing up for courses like these will make them more employable. And that fundamentally goes against what Ashoka stands for.
These pressures are external. Like right now also, like I've spoken to like at least 4 to 5 professors for this story. they keep pointing out that my job is not to make someone immediately industry ready. It is to like nurture intellectual curiosity for them. And the rationale behind this is that like if I prepare them to be industry ready in 2024, what happens in 2028 when industry dynamics change? The question about placements, I think, primarily comes from parents and students.
So now Ashoka is facing a dilemma. Should it give in to the parental pressure and start acting like a business school driven by placements and employability? Or should it just stay on its original course? Hello and welcome to yet another special episode of Daybreak. I'm Snigdha.
And I'm Rahil, and every week we come together to talk about something in business and tech that interests the both of us.
And it won't just be us. Depending on what we're talking about, we will also have some really interesting people on the show.
In today's episode, we talk to Nathan Narde about the next phase of the Ashoka story.
So, Nathan, the entrepreneurship department, obviously, it's been hugely successful, right? In the last few years, just this semester, you had mentioned in your story that 1,000 odd students enrolled for the course. Why do you think that is? Like, do you think it's because former Ashoka students were struggling to get jobs, or is it just students now are becoming more conscious of what makes them employable?
Right. I think that's how entrepreneurship came into being as well. Like I had interviewed someone from like the third graduating batch. Her name is Maria. She's like an investment professional at Omidar Network. And she pointed it out to me that when I was studying economics and finance at Ashoka, we were very tired with this entire theory-based approach. And we really wanted a practitioner's lens to aid our understanding of what we already know. And that was what was missing. And the entire push towards entrepreneurship came from these original crop of students that graduated later. Like now you'll see them in these high flying consulting and like finance jobs, but they were kind of, I would credit them for like what entrepreneurship is today. So they had that initial push. They set up like this investing wing called Bodhi Capital at Ashoka University. So it's like a student arm that basically invests, like I think they had 1 lakh that they got from the university that they could invest in like the public markets. So I think that's what it started off as. And now it's grown into something more than that. I'm not really sure about how much they invest now, but I can certainly say that it's grown over a period of time.
Ashoka's entrepreneurship department, officially called the InfoEdge Center for Entrepreneurship, had a rather slow start when it was set up a decade ago. Nathan says it was initially facing a classic chicken and egg problem. Students weren't really opting for entrepreneurship as a minor, so the course pretty much stayed the same. Basically, since student demand was low, it didn't offer more courses. That was still about 5 years ago. You see, something changed. And I don't mean just at Ashoka.
Across the country, entrepreneurship was the new cool thing to do. It was once confined to just the big cities like Bangalore or Mumbai, but now younger people in smaller cities also wanted to go down that path. And around the same time, there was also an explosion of old MBA schools, STOA, Masters Union, Mesa School of Business. The demand for an entrepreneurship based education began to shoot up.
So, Nathan, what exactly does the entrepreneurship department have to offer, right? What does it look like?
Right. So the entrepreneurship department is unlike other departments in the sense that it works in a visiting faculty model. If you look at the other departments at Ashoka, they have some full-time faculty. At the entrepreneurship department, there's only one person, but he's a director of the institute, so he has a more administrative role. So the entire entrepreneurship department runs on the visiting faculty model, and that basically means that these practitioners come in from outside, and for 39 hours over the course of like 3.5 months, they'll teach you about their expertise. Yeah. And this could range from anything. Like it could be real estate to accounting to sales. Like I think this is the third iteration of Aditya Ghosh, who was ex-CEO of Indigo and now current founder of Akasa Air, teaching a course on service excellence at Ashoka. That's just to name a few.
So students aren't learning about entrepreneurship from academics. In quintessential Ashoka fashion, they're learning about it from actual entrepreneurs, and extremely successful ones at that. And they are rewarded handsomely for their time. Someone familiar with the matter told Nathan that a visiting faculty member is paid 6 to 7 lakh rupees for a 39-hour teaching stint over a semester spanning 3.5 months.
It is a win win in more ways than one. Because very often, more so recently, students have actually ended up being hired by one of these professors.
Then there's this other incident of like Krisha Vaishnav. Again, I feature her in this story because she met her to-be employer at a course known as Fundamentals for Investing. This course was taught by Rahul Bhasin, who's the managing director of Bering, the global private equity giants India Outpost.
Okay.
So he's been teaching this. I think he will offer this course the third time again in like this upcoming year, and they've already hired 4 Ashokans in the 2 times that he's taught this course. So yeah, like it's not just an opportunity to learn from practitioners. People get to meet their to-be employers as well.
Right. But Nathan, that sounds like any other B school, right? So is that really where Ashoka is going?
Yes, and that's the evolution over here. Like Krisha Vaishnav, she's 23 years old. She took this course in 2022. Back then, there was no precedent of getting placed as a result of taking these courses. People that were genuinely curious would end up with this in these courses, and it was almost incidental if you landed up with a job. Like in her particular case, she was offered an internship, and then she managed to convert that into a PPO, like a post placement offer. Now when I spoke to like the younger students, they see entrepreneurship as a lever to increase their employability in the placement cycle, because now they've seen this happen time and again, right? There's precedent and a track record of people getting placed if you take entrepreneurship courses. So yeah, they might be seeing entrepreneurship department as a placement cell.
Right, and is Ashoka kind of leaning into that now?
Yes, I would argue so, because there is a proposal to make entrepreneurship into a major. But at the same time, I can't sit here and say that, okay, they're lesser of a liberal arts college, because to say that, it will basically entail that they are lessening the focus on foundation courses, which really isn't the case.
So it's not that Ashoka has fundamentally changed. It's still a university driven by choice, but now that it is stepping into its second decade, it is expanding that choice. It's also recognizing and reacting to what students want from their education. This time around, it is business education. But in the process, Ashoka is starting to look a lot like a B school's unlikely cousin. Because in the last 2 years, the top 3 campus placements from Ashoka have carried the same titles as those of big B schools like ISB.
The thing is, Ashoka has never really been a university that was driven by job placements. Providing a quality education, teaching students how to think critically, promoting intellectual curiosity, that is what the Ashoka experience is all about. But clearly, now there is this new pressure that was not there before.
Current professor pointed this out to me actually at one of these road shows where Ashoka goes to like colleges in India and just gives them a presentation of what Ashoka is like, what will you stand to gain. The Q&A section just dealt with placements and average salaries. And honestly, fair enough.
Yeah.
At 47 lakhs for 4 years, it is the most expensive undergraduate program in India, period. So if you have questions about placements, they are almost par for the course.
Yeah.
And I've mentioned this in my story, like when I was interviewing Ashish Dhawan as well. He pointed out to me the same thing that the professors told me without his interference. He's like, our job is not to make them placement ready. We'd set up a professional school otherwise. They're not in that game. It's just that they will have to constantly try to deal with this push and pull between placements that the parents will want and the students walk in with, and this core belief that we're trying to build a university which withstands the test of time, you know?
So is that why now the whole focus on entrepreneurship?
Right, that is the biggest challenge. Like, I feel like the rise of the entrepreneurship challenge is it is kind of a threat to that core idea because another professor, Professor Das from the computer science department, he was at IIT Kharagpur for almost 2 decades before he recently moved to Ashoka. And he's been teaching at Ashoka for like the past 5 years now as a visiting faculty. 2 years he was there for full time. He basically pointed out that despite having the background conditions which you can choose a course from and also having world renowned faculty in like other departments, people still view Ashoka University as a 3 department university.
By the way, Ashish Dhawan, who Nathan just mentioned some time ago, is the founding chairperson of Ashoka University.
Like Nathan mentioned, so far this was a university dominated by 3 departments: economics, computer science, and psychology. These were the most popular majors among Ashoka grads. Pretty conventional choices for an unconventional university. Now, entrepreneurship is catching up. Like we mentioned before, the management is even considering turning it into a full blown major eventually.
But that is not the only thing that is changing at Ashoka. The growing focus on business and science is also evident from the university's top leadership.
Nathan, if you look back at Ashoka circa 2014 and Ashoka now, right, in 2024, what has changed, right? How different is the Ashoka that we see today?
Okay. So we can just look at the top leadership position at any university, which is the vice chancellor.
Yeah.
The first 3 vice chancellors at Ashoka came from the humanities background. There was Professor Rudranshu Mukherjee, the very famous professor. Actually, I think he was more famous for leaving Ashoka. Professor Pratap Bhanu Mehta.
Right.
There was he wrote in his letter, he basically made it clear that he was becoming a political liability for the founders, and
Yeah.
that's why he exited. Post which we had a English professor, Professor Malabika Sarkar, that was our vice chancellor. So these were the top jobs were held by the humanities for the first 8 years. Now we have Professor Roy Chaudhary. That is a physicist by training. So when I was speaking to some professors, they were like, the first decade was for the humanities, and the second decade is going to focus on business and technology. Why? Because that answer can be answered because of like, look at the founders' background. They're all entrepreneurs by profession.
Yeah.
Like they've all set up companies. Like Ashish Dhawan he set up one of India's first private equity companies known as Chris Capital, and then he moved into education. Pramatraj Sinha used to be a consultant at McKinsey for the longest time. Sanjeev Bikhchandani set up InfoEdge. So he's one of the earliest internet companies in India.
The department is named after
Exactly.
InfoEdge, right?
So the entrepreneurship department is called the InfoEdge Center for
Yeah.
Entrepreneurship at Ashoka. So yes, it's the founder fit also matches to this. And at the same time, they're ramping up their science department, like the natural sciences. Natural science in the sense of the biosciences, physics, chemistry, as well as the computer science department. So I spoke to Professor Debayan Gupta in the story. He pointed out to me that in 2019, we were almost 4 professors. That number has tripled now. Like there are 12 professors in the computer science department, and they're planning to hire 4 more in like the upcoming year. So yeah, that's the prime focus right now. But when I brought this up with Ashish Dhawan, he's like, our goal is to build a whole university.
Right. But Nathan, when we look at how Ashoka is evolving, first 8 years it focused on humanities. Now it's focusing on tech and sciences. But in the process, what happens to Ashoka's identity? Because it has been this bastion of liberal arts and intellectual curiosity. But now, doesn't it run the risk of going through a major identity crisis?
Yes, I would think so. And personally, I wouldn't blame the founders for this. It is something that the mental model a student comes in with, where they treat Ashoka as this 3 department university because the background conditions are not being tweaked that much. Like you still have the foundation courses and you still have choice. Within this context, you're choosing this. So like if we look at the larger context, right? Last year alone, there were 3 lakh students that wanted to give the CAT exam. This was the highest it's ever been. So there's also this demand for like business education that we're seeing skyrocket in India. Like as recent as like I think 2-3 weeks ago, ISP, which only had a MBA program for people well into their career, now launched a IIM like B school program for people with 1 to 2 years of work ex. So everyone is kind of addressing this demand for like younger students wanting more entrepreneurship education, and like entrepreneurship you can use interchangeably with business for this purpose.
So then ultimately it's just a question of doing the balancing act, right? And that is very difficult to pull off.
It is. It is. Like in a quotable quote, you either die a university or live long enough to become a B school like placement cell. That's probably what's going to happen with Ashoka if they don't manage to pull that balancing act off.
Daybreak is produced from the newsroom of The Ken, India's first subscriber-focused business news platform. What you're listening to is just a small sample of our subscriber-only offerings.
A full subscription unlocks daily long-form feature stories, newsletters, and podcast extras. Head to theken.com and click on the red subscribe button on the top of the Ken website.
Today's episode was hosted and produced by Rahel Philippos and I, Snigdha Sharma, and it was edited by Rajiv CN.